What's up, everybody, and welcome to The Monster and the Bride. This is my lovely wife, Jess, aka The Bride.
Hi.
I am your monster for this evening, and this whole segment, obviously. The whole point of all this is Jess and I are big fans of the classic movies, creature features, schlocky type movies, all the Universal films. As you can see behind me is good old Frankenstein. In this segment, this is our introduction episode. So today we just kind of want to go over what the segment's going to be about, what the whole show is going to be geared towards. And it's mostly going to be talking about the older films and the ones that, kind of started this whole genre that we love. We know that the characters are iconic because, they're on it's part of pop culture, even if people don't like horror movies. I like to think of them as like the Mike, like Frankenstein's like the Michael Jordan of horror. It's like,
yeah, it's the beginning.
Even if you don't watch horror, you know who Frankenstein is, you know who the Wolfman is, all that kind of stuff. So I feel like there's been and I want to hear what your thoughts on this, but I feel like there's been a disconnect between the movies and the characters themselves, because they're on all these, they're on patches, purses, backpacks, t-shirts, all this kind of stuff. But do people still really enjoy the movies? Do they watch all of them? Do they like Creature from the Black Lagoon? Do they like all these black and white movies?
Are you asking me if I think that people have watched the movies or that they just love the icon?
Yeah, no, I think people have, but I think maybe the newer generation, maybe, they are older movies even for our generation, So I don't knock people for liking the characters and not watching the movies, but I think the whole point of this series is going to be maybe we can convince some of these people who haven't, dived into these movies to give them a shot, because they are classics and they are good stories, especially for their time period. And, these guys like we got right here, like they're like the founding fathers of horror, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And whether it be silent films or black and white or whatever, shitty, cheap, schlocky movies, like they have their place.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like if there was a Mount Rushmore,
right.
Their faces would be up there.
Who would you put up there?
Besides them?
Besides those two. Like, who are your other two? Like, I feel like you're putting the Bride up there, right?
Oh, easily. Yeah, I would say Bride, and then...
Bride's funny because I feel like Bride is almost I think Bride is probably better than the original Frankenstein. Because having read Mary Shelley's actual novel, that's the Bride of Frankenstein is actually closer to that source material than the original Frankenstein. So I almost feel like that's the Frankenstein movie. You know what I mean? So I would put, Bride might be up there too.
I would honestly be surprised to see how many people know that Bride isn't the first piece to the story.
Right.
But yeah, she would definitely be up there with me. And then honestly, I would be torn. Because I love Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Right.
But I love Dracula. So I would probably...
And by the way,
and Mummy as well. Yeah, honestly, I would probably... But yeah, I would...
Imhotep, Prince Imhotep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we're kind of just going off like the Universal classic monsters because I feel like those are the OGs, but there's going to be plenty of those that we get to dive into. Those characters in different movies, different series. The spinoffs we're going to be talking about.
How they've influenced
absolutely
the genre.
What characters have been influenced by these what modern characters have been influenced by these ones, I think would be something that we're going to dive into. But yeah, it's going to kind of get out of control. I'm really excited because me and you have always liked these movies, but with Check the Candy and New England Home of Horror, I don't get to touch on them as much because we're doing indie filmmakers and things like that, and it's all modern stuff. Where we get to kind of pay homage to,
and not even just the movies, like the series that came out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Netflix had a good Dracula series. The new movie, Last Voyage of the Demeter, was a movie and a story from the Dracula series that we have never seen on film before,
right?
Which was awesome. Yeah, there's a lot to dive into, and we're going to be touching on, like I said, not just the Universals, but the Hammer horror films,
The Addams Family, the Munsters,
Those are big
Elvira
iconics too. I mean,
series.
how many times do you see the Munsters and like the Addams Family on
Mhm.
stuff, and people haven't really gone into watching those series, or because you kind of saw it with like Rob Zombie's new Munsters, where people didn't get it,
Mhm.
right? They thought it was like cheesy. It was
Right.
like cheesy for a reason.
But
It's
because
like bats on
cheesy,
strings
yeah.
and shit, obviously, because that's how the original show was.
Right.
And so you can kind of see the disconnect where people are like, oh my God, these are these iconic characters. I want it to be like this emotional, raw, dramatic film, where that's not
No.
the source material at all. I mean,
No.
so I found Rob Zombie's movie to be refreshing.
I thought it was awesome.
Yeah. And so stuff like that I really want to dive into with this whole show, because I think it'll teach us more, for one thing.
Mhm.
We don't know everything about all these classic movies. We know a lot about them, but we don't know everything. We mostly just love them. So I think it's really important to dive into stuff like that for the viewers. And then you fans out there that love these movies, when we do these episodes, make sure you like and like the episode, comment below to make sure you let us know certain things about these, your knowledge of these films. You know, I think that's going to be important as well,
Yeah,
as engaging with
agreed.
the audience, and we want to make sure we do
Recommendations.
that. Absolutely. Recommendations is huge. And you know, this whole time we're kind of going to be switching on and off, I think, unless if we both have an idea or we get a recommendation. You know, I'll pick a movie, she's going to pick a movie, and we're really going to dive into the characters that have kind of shaped our love for horror.
Mhm.
So I'm really excited about that. And also I'm excited to do this with you because you're my wife and I love
Yeah.
you. And we've been really excited about this for a long time. We've wanted to do it for even before Check the Candy, you know what I mean? But having this opportunity to do it with you, I'm really excited about that.
We're going to have fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. Is there anything else you think we're going to be touching on that you want to tell them?
I think the only other thing that, because John and I really do enjoy the art of filmmaking, I think going back to the beginning really shows you the spectrum of where movies started and then where they went from. Like, I personally am big into special effects, so to like learn about how they did things in the old black and white movies compared to how they do things today is huge. Like, they didn't have like AI or computers or anything, and they really had to get original, which is CGI. So fun. And like when we did Devils Are We and other projects that we've worked on, you know, we come up with these crazy ideas and then they end up looking amazing. And that's kind of cool because that's how they did that back in the day. They didn't know, they only had so much to work with.
Yeah, a lot of it, first of all, wasn't discovered. Right. They didn't have the CGI or the AI that they have now. So they had to be creative and stuff, but they're also first discovering these things.
Right.
You know?
And not only that, but like
camera,
the world was different then. Definitely. So like they couldn't like have girls walking out naked back in they had to give a shock factor, which to a lot of the and to the like generation now, looking back on these, they might be like, oh, they're, you know, like, where's the shock factor? But like back in the day, that was the shock factor. That was pushing the limits.
And I'm excited to get into some of these movies where I think you do see really good shock factor.
Yeah.
It's things that are really disturbing that people don't remember or don't know that we're in these types of films. But yeah, that's a good point, because everything was different. The camera tricks they were using. Which we, when you do an indie film and you do it on such a low budget, you start to have to be creative like that. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, that's going to be another big thing that we're going to cover. And I think we're just really excited to go on this journey. I know I'm so pumped because I've seen a lot of these movies and some I haven't seen, but it's going to be fun to discover new ones. Get into ones that we have seen, ones that we're knowledgeable about.
Right.
And then also discover the new stuff, learn new stuff about the movies we already love. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of stuff that we're going to be covering. I think a great point is the history of everything leading up to these new things. I think a big thing for me is now discovering when we said we wanted to do this, I really want to dive into the whole pop culture thing and how they've always just stuck around. You know what I mean? And a lot of characters since then have stuck around. I know that Ghostface, all the new slasher ages, you know what I mean? But they weren't like it's so funny to me that it was monsters first, you know? Like I
Yeah.
heard Rob Zombie say one time that they were never called. He never heard when he was a kid. He never heard them be called
Mm-mm.
horror movies. They were monster movies,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And what's really cool about them is, and I think why people loved them so much is because the monsters were the stars.
Yeah.
And you never saw that in any other film.
Right.
So these people that felt out of place in society and things like that, they could relate to these monsters, and those were the stars of the movies.
Right.
It wasn't, you know, the villain. It was the first time the villain was the hero, and they were misunderstood, and all this type of stuff. And it was that. So that's super interesting to me as well. That whole side of it, where there was this whole generation of people where all of this took off because the monsters were the guys.
Right.
If they had playing cards or, you know, kind of like baseball cards or trading cards, it would be these guys' faces.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be, you know, with the Frankenstein film, it would be Frankenstein's monster on the card. It wouldn't be Victor Frankenstein.
Well,
know?
that almost like makes the other thing that I would say we're kind of probably going to touch on is that when you just like love horror movies, you don't realize sometimes, besides just like loving the story, how relevant it is to your everyday life. So like speaking on the pop culture thing, everything in the timeline, you know, is related to current events, which is crazy because it also goes into the evolution of everything having to do with it, the effects, the storylines, like how much darker things get from the beginning to now.
Yeah, and
how they leave just the monster and fictional and go into more realistic.
Yeah, and it was you know, even if it was the whole current events thing, even if it was you know, under the underlying, you know, even if it was subconsciously these filmmakers making these movies that, you know, I don't even think they realized that people were relating to them in that manner, but they were.
Right, because like they were monsters, but those monsters sometimes were more relatable in character than to like always rooting for the good guy. It was like, okay, well, I don't always feel like the good guy.
Right.
These characters are kind of like showing a different side of everything, you know?
Yeah,
like,
or some people look at the monsters as the good guys.
Like, what is it, the anti-hero?
Some people, I think, they thought they were misunderstood and they were the good guys. You know what I mean? And we see that change a lot in horror to modern horror where, you know, especially even in my films where I seem to, for some reason, write, I don't know what it is about my brain, but I just write terrible characters.
Yeah.
Not in the sense that they're
terrible people.
Not that they're terribly written.
Beautiful story, terrible people.
But they're terrible people.
Right.
Yeah, there's no real hero in any of my stories so far anyway. But I think a lot of people did that, and then they realized that they might have been writing this character as a piece of themselves.
Right.
And, you know, there's a lot more to the stories with those old movies and classic movies. So I'm really excited to get down to business with this, and even also go into, you know, where it changed, like what when it changed to that more modern era and things like that. What happened? What was going on? And why kind of creature features and monster flicks kind of shifted gears and it became more realistic horror with slashers and.
Well, that's why I think it's funny that when we first started talking about doing this project, and John told me about it by saying we're going to do Monster and the Bride, and it was just funny because I love everything about the Bride and I love everything about Frankenstein, but what a lot of people don't understand is that Frankenstein, the whole essence of his character is that he's completely misunderstood.
Well, his monster, yes.
Yeah, the monster. Sorry, the monster of Frankenstein.
The monster, not Victor.
But also, people paint like the Bride and Frankenstein as this romantic story when really it's not.
It's really not.
It's not at all.
No, and Frankenstein's such a fun one, and it might be something we start with because, you know, the doctor himself was not a good person. He was
terrible
he was
human.
A bad person. Even if you go to Mary Shelley's work, it was, you know, this, and it relates to society a lot about, you know, going too far. We've seen society go too far so many times. She talks a lot in that book about, you know, sometimes the better person is the one who stays home. not the one who goes out and seeks all these different accomplishments and dreams, because sometimes we've seen that with cell phones and the internet, and not that there aren't good things about it,
Right,
but
right. It's double-edged sword.
You've seen some devastating things happen.
Well, Mary Shelley wrote that story, didn't even get credit.
Didn't even get credit. That's
originally because of the times. Because of the times.
Absolutely. And she didn't get credit until a long time. That's a very good point. And so I'm just super excited. These episodes, we want you to know, are going to be around 15, 20 minutes long. It's not going to be anything crazy. So we're going to touch on the important points, and there's going to be plenty of time for people to comment and leave their knowledge and information in the comments on YouTube.
We're always interested in more facts.
Absolutely. Something we want to talk about all the time. And we might try to come up with something where we can engage with fans on that. And, things like that. So we're super excited. We thank you guys for joining us so much. Make sure you subscribe to Check the Candy. All right. Check out all our other content that we're creating. Short films. Devil's Are We is out right now. Over almost 60,000 views. Go check that out. Blu-rays are available as well. Go check out Nest and He Knows. And I'm sure by the time this comes out, Taylor will have his new film, What Happens While You Sleep, out. We're working on a few more short films, plenty of stuff going on with Silverback Lane, which, if you don't know, is our new movie that we're going to be filming in 2025 with some people in the horror community. But make sure you like and subscribe to Check the Candy. Like this video, always comment, and anything else to say?
I don't think so.
Hit that like button. And for The Monster and the Bride, we'll see you next time.